Hey Lee, this is Henry McClure. This video was made for the benefit of you to write the article so you could, this is like my interview. And if I need to uh, make a payment for some of the transcribing, also I want to subscribe. I, I want to become a subscriber to your paper. And I should have done that a long time ago. Uh, I'd like to get uh, a digital subscription, but so I was born July 13th, 1959 at Stormont Vale. I was baptized at St. David's on the same year, 59, at St. David's on November 29th. My dad actually formed St. David's when he was the chancellor for the Episcopal Church at Grace Cathedral. So he did that in the mid 50s. St. David's opened in 54, probably 55. My dad was actually the son of a Presbyterian, or his grandfather was actually a Presbyterian priest. Sam McClure was discharged here he was a Yankee chaplain and was the third guy at the First Presbyterian Church. And he went around Kansas opening up Presbyterian churches. It's kind of funny. He was almost like a real estate guy. You know what I mean? But he did retire back to Topeka. His son, James A. McClure, was a district court judge. My grandfather, I never met my grandfather, but I think he first was on the school board in 25. He never believed in separate but equal. And after Brown versus Board, he implemented the change. They named McClure School after him. I eventually, in first, second, and third, went to McClure School, but we'll get to that. So my dad and mom met at KU, and my grandfather on the Bantleon side, I actually go back 6 generations in Wyandotte and only 4 here in Shawnee. But my mom and dad were married for 20 years before they had me. They adopted 3 kids, Robert, Allison, and John. They were all 5 years apart. And then I was 5 years apart from John. Uh, my mom divorced my dad when I was 3. I lived at 18th and Oakley. My dad later on fought my mom over the children, only 2 of them though. I kind of resented my dad because of that. You know, if my mom was unfit for Robert and Allison, he was unfit for John and Henry. You know what I mean? My dad was a little bitter, to say the least. Originally, we moved to a little house on Indian Trail off of 21st Street. I think it's behind, behind our house is now what's Care Paravel or no, Collegiate. But right away we moved out to Pauline, We lived there for a year. My mom's best friend, Dorothy Hill, was a Smalley, Clyde Smalley's daughter. And Clyde actually developed a lot of Westboro and um, developed Pauline. So we lived next to the Smalleys for a year. And then we bought a house on 20th Street, 24th Street. And that's when I got to go to McClure. But at the end of my third grade year, Mom remarried. We moved out to Lake Sherwood. And I finished my schooling here at Wanamaker, Scheidler, and Rule. I was a two-time state gymnastics champion at Washburn Rule. And that's probably when I got addicted to adrenaline. Seriously, adrenaline. It is the best drug there is ever. And but I found out at an early age that alcohol provided a kind of a false positive to that adrenaline rush. And I would honestly say that throughout my life, I never really, I could stop and start drinking anytime I wanted to. And but that fake adrenaline high is something you really kind of like if you're really if you've really crushed the adrenaline habit. I went to KU on a gymnastics scholarship, and I really wasn't focused. we used to paint houses for Bill Lewis Real Estate. As a gymnast, he used to adjust athletes, and that's how I got to know Bill Lewis in the beginning. But we painted houses for him as kids in high school, and later on, a friend of mine and I really became commercial painters. We made between our senior year of high school and freshman year of college, we both made 20 grand each. And we sold our painting company to one of our employees, and he bought the whole shooting match. So, off to KU, and then I became a yell leader, and I couldn't focus on my grades. I moved back to Topeka, finished my last semester at KU, and started selling life insurance at a very young age. Got fired from the life insurance job after I bought a duplex. Oh, do you want to hear something crazy? This is what's really wild in my life. Is my very first job was working for Jack Wiley out at the Topeka Public Golf Course. Jack Wiley actually owned White Lakes Country Club. And when the irony of that is that was my first commercial job, was working for the second owners of White Lakes. But Jack was cursing the mall developers one day, and I said, "Well, what's wrong?" And he goes, "Well, they built a mall on my golf course." And I said, "All right, Jack, why'd you sell it?" And he goes, "Well, I quoted them a crazy price, and then they gave me 50,000 over it." And then Jack would laugh. But the 5 o'clock crowd at the golf course was Jack's old country club members, and Jack died over the winter that year between 7th and 8th grade, and then are you enjoying John Wick here in the background? But anyway, Jack Jack's son, it was kind of odd. He goes, I said, well, hey, Jack, how about a raise this summer, to, $2 an hour. So we got $1 an hour and free golf and free food the day you clean the concession stand. And he said, no, you're fired. Well, I said, hey, this is just a negotiation. He goes, you're out. So I'm riding my bike home, and I stopped at Lake Sherwood, the manager's office, a fellow named Maurice Martin. And I asked Maurice if I could get a job. He was worried about me. I was rather a small person at the time. And he was worrying about that tractor being more than I could handle. He said, all right, just come back tomorrow after school and we'll see what we can do. So he showed me how to work the tractor and basically just started mowing the field by the office. And he goes, now keep it in gear number 4. Look, you're getting paid by the hour. And I go, I'm getting paid by the hour. It sounds like I got the job. He goes, well, mow it. I go, what am I going to get paid an hour? $5. All right. So, and I did a really good job, and he hired me. And I kept that job all the way through high school. It was great. Later on, he used to say, why don't you just go ahead and fill up your gas tank? You've been doing good. So I mowed the common areas and some of the lots for sale, stuff like that. And Maurice ended up being totally a lifelong friend. I mean, just a great guy. I mean, just unbelievably, the wisdom I got from him. He was a World War II Marine, and he always used to say, there's no atheist in a foxhole. And he said, war makes people, he said it will make men do some really terrible things. You see in war a whole different side of people. And, but I've always admired and looked up to Maurice just as a human, and truly a lifelong friend. Maurice was also head of the Federal Highway Authority. I think he was actually head of the Democratic Party too. But Maurice, in a lot of ways, was a father figure. Just work hard, just mind your own business. Do the right thing, guy. You know what I mean? So after getting fired from the life insurance job when I was around 18, 19, I ended up getting a real estate license, started working for Bill Lewis Real Estate. And I'll never forget, after I got fired, see, I bought a duplex from Bill, and I had to renovate it just so I could live in it. And maybe I was gone longer than I should have been. But when I came back, my boss is sitting at my desk. He got his feet chilled, he's kicking back, and he said, hey, where you been? I told him about the duplex, and I need to get busy. I need to get some commissions. And he goes, well, I'm going to give you the chance to do real estate full time. I go, sounds like I'm fired. Yeah. So anyway, I didn't know what to do. I told Bill Lewis the story, and he goes, now look. He goes, I can't rebate commissions. That's illegal. But I can give you a signing bonus for joining my company. And he explained it this way. He said, now, if you would have sold the duplex that you bought, you would have earned, $375 commission. Because it was a house listing. So anyway, he wrote on it, signing bonus salary. I never had to pay it back no matter what. But I walked out of there with a check for like $375. And I went down and showed that to the life insurance guy and thanked him for firing me. You know, I've had several firings turn out to be a good thing. You know, if you don't get fired every once in a while, I'll never forget. I had this deal down in Florida when I left Kansas City, and when the guys hired me, they said, "Now look, if you go down there and fire everybody, we won't be mad at you." What I didn't get, I wasn't very fast on the uptake on that one, is we're telling you to go down and fire everybody. Well, I learned later. But anyway, so I was with Bill Lewis for a little while, High Plains Realty for a little while, and then I found a home over at Coldwell Banker. And but this job with the Macerich Company just jumped up out at me. And one of the owners of Macerich used to live. He was my neighbor, Dana K. Anderson, out in Lake Sherwood. Lived right across the cove from us. And Dana liked to hire people from Topeka because he knew our families, he knew our work ethic. You know, people from Kansas have a good work ethic. And plus, he said, you guys will go wherever we tell you. He goes, I can't get guys in Southern California to go to Columbus, Georgia. You know, except Thomas Henry Murrin did go, but he went down to Mississippi. But Anderson hired Steve Roush, Della Chadwell, Mark Klein, Jim Britt, Steve Yeager, Jeff Probasco. If I keep thinking there's some more, there were a lot of people that got to leave Topeka because of Dana K. And, you know, when I didn't hate Topeka when I left, and Ben Blair made a hell of an offer for me to stay here in Topeka. So anyway, I went down to Winter Park, Florida, and I'm working for a fellow named Charles Waldron, and Kerry Webb was there, and I hated it. I thought I've made a terrible mistake because I've gone from being a salesman to, you know, showing up in a tie, sitting in the filing room. You know, this big guy calls you up and you got to go in there, take notes. And so, but on the third day I come in and there's this thing called the Macerich Happenings. And I start reading about this big project in Boulder, $40 million. We're building a mall, on a mall, adding 2 department stores, all these 125 new shops, renovating the whole property, tying it together, TIF financing. Man, I just said, they need a guy like me on that project. You know, humble Henry. So Charles, on the third day, he goes, hey, come in my office. So I got my notepad. I'm ready to take notes. He goes, we have this mall in Boulder. I go, when do I go? He goes, who told you? And it was great. It was great. I got to go in and I was a tenant construction coordinator. I was a grunt, man. It was so fun. I cut my teeth in the mall business, getting all the plans in, getting them approved through the system. You know, 4 sets of plans, a sepia, a sample board, Mylars, sign detail. Was it a split system, HVAC? You know, I had 100 general well, later on, I had 100 general contractors. But like in the beginning, and that was always the best way to see how a deal was going to go, was how the plans went. So my job was to get the plans turned in and get them going so that was the best indicator why the lease was in process. And Roush and Yeager and Murrin were the leasing guys. And then Mace and Dana would come in, the Coppola brothers. I got to know everybody. I'm out there working for Hawkeye and Claude, one of the owners. Yeah, I reported to everybody. It was fun. So I worked for management and reported to the leasing committee. And then one day, this fellow named Henry Nathan Sims walks in my office. He hands me a radio. He goes, look, you know the plans better than anybody. Now make sure they build them to plan. So I start working for Henry Nathan and make sure the tenants, because we had a grand opening. And this was really cool. This was fun. This is Boulder. It was a time that Mace Rich morphed. You know, we paid all our bills. We got out of debt. It catapulted us into the future. We were known as the mall doctors. And boy, Mace was the head surgeon. It was so fun. So after the night of the grand opening dinner, that night, Mace asked me, he goes, what are you going to do now? Go into leasing? And I was telling him how much I liked working for Henry Nathan, and his nephew elbowed me. His nephew's actually, all this artwork here in the AHA gallery, that's Mike Siegel's, Mace's nephew. And Mike goes, Henry, leasing runs the company, it runs the industry. And I said, Mace, I'm going into leasing. He goes, that's a good choice. And he goes, I'll get you an assignment as fast as I can. So I ended up preparing a pad site for Mervin's and working for Henry Nathan and doing the punch list on the corn shell and working with the city of Boulder. And this was an experience at age 22 and 23 that's second to none. You know, I'm working on what was then a $40 million project, TIF project. Know about construction, understand the deal making. This stuff, I mean, that's the essence of Henry McClure, is what happened at Crossroads. The only thing that made as big an impression on my life changing, happened on May 2nd, 2015. But we'll get to that later. So I'm going to get us through Boulder and then take a break. So one day Henry Nathan called me up and he goes, hey, run Al Cohen off the job. They were the union shop. And they just were taking too long. So he didn't tell me how to run them off. So what I did was I found the foreman and just started following him around. You know, just like his shadow. He looked at me at the end of the day. He goes, is this how it's going to be? And I go, yeah. Found him the next day. And I'm telling you, within 10 days, they were completely done. He didn't want to see me again. But that's what you got to do. You got to do what it takes. You got to do what it takes to get the job done. You got to be able to think on your feet. You got to be inventive. Fortunately for me, what I got to do was I got to go from project to project. And I'm going to go I'm going to go in detail on another show about what happened in Chattanooga, but I'm going to give an overview right now, real quickly, of my Macerich life. I'm going to bring us up to the internet from a broad view. Off to Chattanooga, $10 million renovation. We're working for Provident and for Osborne Enterprises. Provident, we're paying them back. They loaned us money to buy White Lakes in the beginning. After that project, I think we did 65 leases and 2.5 million in minimum rent. Back to Boulder because we had bought a mall in Greeley and we had one in the Metro Denver area. Worked on those projects for a while, then made it to Long Beach and Lakewood. And really in Macerich, once you get to California, you made it with the company. Our offices were on Ocean Boulevard at the time. No, on Wilshire, just a block off of Ocean Boulevard. And I officed out of Lakewood and was doing Park Lane Mall in Reno, flying back like a ping pong ball. And then I had a mall in the Valley, and ended up moving up to Ventura, started the internet company, then to Kansas City, back in the mall business, Florida on a project that well, we'll talk about Florida in another show. Plus, I'm telling you, John Wick is distracting me a little bit. When I come back live, we'll have the TV turned off. But this is a starter. Henry McClure Live.